Good evening and welcome to a regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. It is the evening of July 12th. It's a Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. I'd like to call this regular meeting to order at this time. I'll invite you to stand and join us first in an invocation led by Pastor Josh Hubbard of the Life Church, and then immediately following that, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Hubbard?
I would like to invite anyone who is willing to join me in prayer. Let us pray. Jesus, we thank you for this time to come together as leaders of our community. We ask for your wisdom to guide tonight's conversation. We ask that you would supply us with the insight needed for the future as we strive to be good stewards of this city you have given to our care. We also ask that you would watch over and protect those who lead our community, both those in this council and those affiliated with this council. And bless each and every person here as the leaders commence with tonight's meeting. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Hubbard. I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance at this time.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight's meeting will be both a physical meeting location and a virtual meeting. Today's meeting may be viewed live via YouTube and on cable channel 10, HD 1090. City staff are participating both in person and via teleconference. Guests that are included in staff presentations will be excused from the Ring Central meeting at the conclusion of the agenda item as appropriate. So I'd like to turn to our city clerk at this time. Julie, will you please do the roll call?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Munns.
Present.
Councilmember Heisen.
Present.
Councilmember Evans.
Present.
Councilmember Hoffmeyer.
Present.
Councilmember Wiesner.
Present.
Councilmember Stuckey.
Present.
Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
Mayor, all members of council are present virtually or in person.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. So at this point then we'll turn to our agenda, and unless there are any suggested changes to the agenda, we will move forward as it is presented. Seeing no changes, I don't need a motion, I guess. We're going to move forward. We'll go to section 2 then of the agenda, which is presentations, honors, and recognitions. This evening under item C, we have a community presentation. I think this is a follow-up from the Economic Development Council for Island County. The ED, Executive Director Sharon Sappington, is with us, has some additional information that follows her presentation at our last workshop on the 29th. So I'll turn to Sharon at this time.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Severns, and I'm happy to be here, City Council members, and I am going to, I have a PowerPoint presentation, and I tried to make the words really big so you could see it on the screen, so hopefully it won't look like it's yelling at you. But I'll go through these slides very quickly. I'm going to just kind of touch on some things having to do with what the EDC is, because it sounds like some of you might not be as familiar with the EDC as others. And then I'll go into some specifics about how the EDC is helping Oak Harbor along with some numbers. Do you see the slide presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good, thank you. Well, just very briefly, the economic development really is all about promoting economic vitality We work to create a thriving economic environment to where the businesses can grow and create jobs. And we really do try to, everything that we do tries to preserve our unique quality of life, because there are some people that might be fearful that economic development could be bringing in the big factories and things like that. So, but we're very sensitive to all of that. And what the EDC really is we're a private 501c6. We're a membership organization. I report to a board of directors. We have about 20 board of directors, and we consist of 2 staff members plus contractors that we use for any kind of special work or when we need areas of expertise. We're the associate development organization in the county. Some of you might have heard of the term ADO. There's an ADO in most counties, and this is a designation between the EDC, Island County, and the Washington Department of Commerce. So the EDC has a contract with the Washington Department of Commerce as the ADO, and then also Island County has a contract with Washington Department of Commerce, naming us as the designated partner. And that means that we are really the partner of Washington Department of Commerce. We are the feet on the ground for them. We get our funding from Island County. We also get it from the Washington Department of Commerce under this contract. We've gotten a few grants, and I'm hoping to get some more in the future. We also get funding through our sponsorship and our membership dues. And you can really look at our core work like in 4 buckets. This is very, very high level. Just, we work with existing businesses to retain them and help them expand. We work helping businesses that want to start, around the entrepreneurship. We do new business attraction into our county. And we also do a lot of readiness and capacity building. That means we're out working with other organizations to help community projects and things like that, and to also help anywhere we can to help educate. We do have strategic priorities. We have a 5-year strategic priority plan. We did this in 2020, and it's still, I think it's a good set of priorities now that we're in 2022. These are not in any order of importance. However, the very first one is the top priority, and that's the economic recovery and resiliency. And that is really working with our businesses, trying to help create the environment for them to be able to recover and thrive. And the highlights of what the EDC does is we do a lot of in-depth business advising. We cross all the different stages of the business across different sectors. There's not too many industries that we don't deal with. We also work with the startups and entrepreneurs, and that too is across all stages, from somebody's got an idea, somebody's ready to launch, maybe they've launched and now, I've launched and I'm having success. What do I do now? I'm growing too fast. So we help them, and we also make referral to resources, as well as try to provide networking opportunities, because we found it's very important for entrepreneurs to be able to talk amongst themselves. We also do education and referrals, like I mentioned in the entrepreneur section. We try to find educational opportunities. We do some education, but we also try to leverage other partnerships out there. So sometimes I'm out there developing partnerships with the idea of being able to bring in some educational opportunities. For example, a few months ago, we were able to bring in a educational opportunity that's called Rainmaker. It was a 10-week program that was at no cost. And we were the only county in the state of Washington that was invited to this. The people, we had 8 businesses that went through it, and it was about marketing your business and all the little ins and outs of marketing that sometimes elude a lot of businesses when they're just trying to run their business. Also, we have another one coming up that is starting in a couple months. We sent out an email blast today, and that one is called Moneymaker. So that one is also a 10-week program. They meet an hour and a half every Wednesday, And it's to really dig into all the aspects of finance, whether, what kind of funding do I need? How do I figure out my cash flow? All the real basics that are really, really important. And then we also do a lot of referrals to professional services because we try to help businesses do things so they don't have to pay for services that they may not need, but there are times that you need services. You're going to need a lawyer. You might need a CPA. There are things that you just can't search for the answer on internet. You do have to, pay the money. As far as the one-on-one business advising, some of you might have already met Christina Hines. She does live in Oak Harbor. So she is our SBDC advisor. We brought her into the organization at the end of 2020. She works half-time. She works out of the EDC office, but she also does a lot of virtual. In fact, she was doing all virtual before. But she does a lot of advising. The organization, SBDC, does research that is at no cost to their clients. And so anybody that has any questions about business, please contact me and I'll get you in connection with Christina. She really is doing a stellar job and she's getting lots of praises from the businesses that she's been working with. So looking at her work, what I did is I put together, I can't go into a lot of detail because, it's very confidential. The work with these businesses. Sometimes a business doesn't want anybody to know that they're getting advice. They don't want their competitor to know. So we have to always think of things in aggregate number. So back in 2021, so that's 12 months. I have broken down two ways: the number of hours and the businesses. A unique business means that these are businesses. These are businesses that. They're individual businesses, so that she might be working with 15 businesses, but she's doing ongoing work with them. So as you can see, the hours is over 100 hours, and that includes both the prep work, any kind of research she has to do, and the actual meeting with the clients. So and then you can see what the total for Island County was for the hours and the number of businesses. So in 2021, almost one half of the total hours were for Oak Harbor, and then more than one half of the number of clients was for Oak Harbor. And then we can look at 2022. You'll see similar numbers. This is only 6 months, but again, we can see the total. And so for 2022 so far, about 1/4 of the total hours that she's been advising has been going to Oak Harbor, and more than half of the total clients have been with Oak Harbor. And just some examples of the kind of assistance that she gives. She's working with local farms. She helped a business figure out their pay practices and insurance compliance with wage and hour laws, which if you don't do that right, you get in a lot of trouble. Actively helped hire their first employees. Helped 3 different construction and contracting businesses get up and going, and that's really great to hear because I know we definitely need that here. Also helping food businesses, with the health department, WSDA, USDA, and also she's helping businesses or clients buy a business. And the kind of topics she goes into, I think, is really interesting to see. She gets into the finance is the big piece that she gets into, because a lot of times that's where the business really needs help. They might not know it, but that's where they really can get the most value. But then also a startup, all the regulations, Secretary of State registration, agreements, costing and pricing, and then buying and selling businesses. This is something that is a little bit trickier than what people think. And also she does a lot of work with human resources. There again, if you have got a company that starts and they're a sole proprietor, all of a sudden they have 6 employees. Well, they get confused about this piece, and they definitely need somebody they can sit down one-on-one to walk them through some of this stuff, because if they try to find it all online, they'll probably go a little bit wacky. And then we also have the entrepreneurial ecosystem. This is a newer initiative. We just launched it last year, and that is definitely going to be impacting Oak Harbor. And then during COVID, the EDC administered almost $500,000 to businesses in Island County. So out of that, about 129,000 of the grants were given to Oak Harbor businesses. And I just did a really quick breakdown so you can see where there was Working Washington 1, there was Working Washington 2, and then in addition on Working Washington 2, the county threw in some money for us to administer along with what they were, the money that they had. And then also, when we aren't helping directly on the administration of grants, which we haven't done for a while now, we do provide a lot of input to Commerce. For example, I was just on a call a couple of weeks ago with Commerce because they were thinking of launching this new grant, and they just wanted some input from the different ADOs about what's really needed in our counties, and they pay a lot of attention to the rural communities like us. So I'm really glad that we're able to give that input. And when they do release a grant program, we help them support it. We help them promote it. And there are times that they come to us and ask us for direct assistance to the businesses because they might be working with some businesses. They're having a hard time getting to them or making them understand. So they just found it's easier for us to just go in, talk with the business, work on one-on-one with them, and walk through any kind of grant process that's hanging them up. We've also got Leadership Whidbey. We are a partner. The EDC is a partner with Leadership Whidbey, along with Skagit Valley College and Snow Isle Libraries and Whidbey Institute. Our second cohort just graduated in May, which I'm really excited about. But I'm a member of the Oversight Committee, which means I'm really involved with a lot of the detail. And then I'm also the head of the Economic Vitality Day, which means that's one of the learning days. And so I put together a committee every time. This coming one will be my third one, and we decide what we need to have, what we need to have for that learning day for the cohort, and that can change. The focus can change depending on what's going on. The last 2 years we had a different focus, and we might have a different focus this third one. And so if you look at the graduates, a large portion of them come from Oak Harbor. So in 2021, a third of the graduates were from Oak Harbor, and almost half the graduates this year were from Oak Harbor. So Oak Harbor is definitely benefiting from Leadership Whidbey and the EDC's involvement with that. And we do a lot more with Leadership Whidbey than I have on the slides, but this is enough to kind of help you understand a little bit. And then we also have information and data. We really try to stay current with all the kind of programs and opportunities out there and try to give the information out to businesses and other organizations that work with businesses. And then we also have research reports that we keep updated. You can find them online. We have a schedule for updating each one of them. A lot of times it depends on how often the data source updates. Sometimes they don't update every year. So we have a schedule to figure that out. And then we're always there to answer any questions if anybody looks at the data and say, I don't know what to do with this data. It's interesting, and so here's the reports that we do have on our website. So you can kind of see there across the line. The Island County profile is the one that the real estate agents seem to like the most. And we have a printable, black and white printable version for that because some of them like to print it out and keep it in their office. Also in the information and data, we have a tool on our website. We call it Size Up Island County. And this is a really cool tool. We pay an annual fee for it, and it's available to businesses to use. And it's amazing the kind of information that you can get on it. It's the application or the tool has been designed in such a way that you don't have to be an expert in using these research tools. They try to make it really, really easy. They've taken away a lot of the bells and whistles to accomplish that, to get the price down. But the businesses that have used it have been so excited about what they've been able to get with it. And then our SBDC advisor, Christina Hines, actually sits down with businesses if they can't quite figure it out, and she'll actually walk through it with them with whatever challenge they have. But the kind of information you can get is like, for example, I want to put in a coffee shop on Whidbey Island, but I want to make sure that I'm in an area where the people or the neighborhood can afford to pay for my expensive coffee. But I also want to know what my competition is. And I like to know how much my competition is paying their staff. So all that kind of information is in there. And we do have a training seminar, a webinar coming up next week. So if anybody's interested in that, you can go on our website or just contact me and we'll get you lined up on that. It's an hour and a half long, and it's going to be somebody from the company Size Up that will be walking us through how to use it. And then just finally, I just wanted to kind of throw this up here to show that, the EDC is really involved with a lot of different organizations. I don't know if you can see it, it's pretty small. But, we are on boards and committees. We try, and sometimes we're, very active in a committee. Sometimes we're on a committee just so we can keep up to date on whatever that topic is. For example, I see I have something in here twice. The Northwest Workforce Council. That must be because it's a lot of work. I had to put it in there twice. But that's a quarterly meeting. I'm also part of the planning committee meeting. And so there's other projects like Tourism Committee. And then with the Skagit Valley College Worker Retraining Advisory Committee. So they're very interesting committees. So I'm going to stop sharing if I can figure it out. Okay, have I stopped sharing?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. So any questions or comments or clarifications?
Council, questions, comments? Not at this time? Okay. Councilor Hoffmeyer?
Sharon, just like at the workshop, thank you so much for your time being here tonight, giving us this presentation. Thank you to Christina and Steve for backing you up on all your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Munns, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you to Sharon. I've had conversations with the executive director of the chamber, and she said how wonderful you have been to help in all kinds of ways with startups and all the different programs you mentioned, especially the latest one, the Rainmaker. And she sees it so valuable between the chamber working with EDC. So I am so glad that hopefully we can work something out in a partnership. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's really nice to hear.
Okay, I think that concludes our questions. Thank you, Sharon. We appreciate your time here. And
Okay, thank you.
We will then move on to our item number 3 on the agenda, citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on subjects of interest not listed on the agenda or items listed on the consent agenda. Citizens may also comment on corresponding agenda items. There are many ways to contact us, all of which are posted here. Citizens can also visit our website for methods to submit public comment or contact the city clerk, Julie Lindsay, by phone or email as noted here. When submitting comments, please include your name and address. Public comments sent anonymously will be shared with the mayor and council but will not be displayed. Submit requests to staff or departments via the Contact Us form at www.oakarbor.org/contact. You can also call 360-279-4500 or email info@oakarbor.org. Additional options for contacting city council members are available on the screen. Council members also have individual email addresses, all of which are listed on our website. We did receive several comments from the public since our last regular meeting, which were forwarded to council and will be displayed now. Okay. This is now the time for public comment. If there are any members present this evening of the public who wish to speak.
Mayor Barbara Arms has signed up to speak.
Wonderful. Barbara?
You guys missed me, so, I have to give you something. It's probably, I'm Barbara Arms. I live 351 Northeast Noonan Loop in Oak Harbor. I know this is off of what we usually talk about, but I want to remind everybody that things are really rapidly changing in the city. It's getting more and more expensive, and you're right, we don't always have the housing, but we can't lose our farms and our open space that everybody loves. We have to consider how we can move along this problem. We've already changed the zoning, which is really important, but I think when I talked to Blaine about doing the industrial park and also the infrastructure, I think it's two vital things. It will provide us better paying jobs for people to be able to afford, and we keep going to different jobs that are really stretching the limit of the employees, the employers, and the employees. I think we need to seriously consider using that we have, that we can use. You may not like the look of the U-Haul, but at least we have something there. We need to think about how we're going to be able to put better paying jobs, and we've started the infrastructure, and I'd like us to continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Anyone else on the list?
No one else signed up, Mayor.
Okay, well, you want to have an opportunity for anybody else here present this evening? Vicki, certainly.
So Vicki Graham, Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce, 32630 State Route 20, Oak Harbor, Washington. First off, I would like to say that I am behind Sharon 100% with EDC. We've had hundreds of calls to the chamber. The first question is, do you need a one-on-one or do you need resources? If it's a one-on-one, we refer them to Christina. If it's resources, we refer them to the Snow Isle Library for their data resources. We've had nothing but positive feedback from all the communication, so they do a great job. Not to mention the free classes that EDC covers that they offer to the business members, so 100% on that. And the second thing is fire department, police department, and city staff. Amazing job on July 4th. Beautiful show, all the hard work setting up and breaking down. My heart just feels I cannot thank you enough for all your help and everything that you did, and thank you for making it an amazing 4th of July.
Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for all your time and effort. Thank you. Anyone else here? Please come forward.
Huh? Oh. Good evening, City Council. We live at 163 Sunset Drive. I am Alicia Jones, an incoming freshman at Oak Harbor High School.
And I'm Elena Jones, a senior at Oak Harbor High School and a freshman at Skagit Valley College. Today, we would like to propose an idea that we believe will have many benefits. But before we move on, we would like you to take a quick moment to think about the adorable, sweet, kind, and loving creatures we call dogs.
Did you smile when you thought of our furry friends? Well, there's a chance for kids to smile every day at school. We believe that every school counselor should have a dog at school. As an incoming freshman, I expect some days at school are going to be harder than others. Throughout the days at school, there's going to be anxiety, annoyance, stress, and still just one more thing to handle. Something that would make those more stressful and bad days at school better are dogs. And here's why.
Our first realization was that it would be helpful to the kids. For many teens for many kids and teens especially, they battle with mental health and stress every day. Dogs help provide a sensory stress reliever and provide emotional support. On top of that, having a dog in the counselor's office will improve overall morale, encourage students to meet with counselors. It can help kids make friends. It teaches students responsibility. It increases exercise, and it provides companionship.
The next perception we had was that it would also help teachers. Teaching kids and having your own personal life at home, I imagine, isn't always easy. Teaching kids, grading work, and having a limited amount of time to teach all the required lessons can be very stressful. So having a dog available to teachers can also help with their own mental health, and it can help reduce stress and increase morale for them too. It could also potentially be a more productive learning environment for all three parties, the teachers, the students, and the dogs.
The next thing we had thought about was how would this be beneficial to the dogs. For these adorable and sensitive creatures, it will help keep them off the streets. It gives them a home, it helps provide socialization, which could also help the dog's own personal well-being, which means they will be doing better at their job. And it gives them stability, so overall, having them in schools would give them a sense of purpose and it could save their life.
Now what happens when we don't have school? When we're out of summer, a volunteer family or counselor can take the dog home and take care of them. However, by having a volunteer family take the dog home with them can also teach kids responsibility. You might also think, well, what about the health risks? The dogs will be required to have all their shots and will be spayed or neutered. Kids can have the option to request not having the dog in the room with them while visiting with the counselor. When a kid is done with their visit, there will be a lint roller provided by the door to remove the shredded dog hair.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. Please very closely consider the options and potential opportunities, giving counselors the option to have dogs with them at school. Any questions?
So I am going to allow council at this time to certainly ask questions, but before I do that, I want to thank you both so much for coming forward. That was cool. Thanks. We really appreciate I know it's not easy, but thank you. You did a wonderful job. Council, you got some input or questions?
Well, I just first want to say it's just a doggone good idea. Yeah, I had to get one. No, I love it. I have a dog. I love dogs, especially those nice yellow labs by your feet. They're great. So thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't always control what the school does.
School board.
And they have a board, and I'm hopeful that you will go speak to them. We do communicate, and we can and certainly will pass along your idea directly to the school to tell them that we received this. And I'm going to ask Mr. Olborn to ask our staff to do that. They have a brand new superintendent there, and they're looking for new ideas. So let's give them one here. Anybody else, council? Oh, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to announce that Help House, our North would-be Help House, is food center in town for the city. And on Saturday, the 16th of July, will be the 45th anniversary. They're celebrating at Help House. You can have a warehouse. They're going to have some hot dogs and hamburgers, I believe. And it's from 9 a.m. to 5. And the address is 10 East Hathaway. So it's just kind of across the parking lot from the back parking lot of City Hall. But it's a wonderful opportunity for people to come and view the food bank, and everyone in the city and the county need food. So please come by and see what we're all about, and maybe get a list of what they will need for Christmas in July. And that's all I have. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Back to questions on this. Yes, Councilor Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, it was dogs that first got me involved in Oak Harbor politics. This would have been, my dog Harley's 14 and a half years old, so probably a little over 13 years ago, worked with the city to repeal the breed-specific legislation. And it ended up being something that we went statewide to do at many municipalities. So pretty cool. Throughout my 2 terms on the Parks Board, it was always the youth, it was always the kids that kept me involved. It was part of why I did it. You two are amazing. Thank you for coming tonight. I think several of us will relay your story to the school board, and I hope that you can get on their schedule soon. Thank you.
Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm a product of Oak Harbor High School. Long time ago, very long time ago, and I can remember we actually had a day where you could bring your pet to school, and that was one of the funnest days of the year. And just can't thank you enough for taking the time, having the courage to step up. We don't bite. Except for Brian. But again, I can't thank you guys enough, and certainly I imagine several of us are going to be having that conversation with the school board members, and certainly we suggest that you make your presentation there also. All right?
Thank you for your time.
So are you sisters?
Yes.
Do you always get along this well?
For the most part, yeah.
Oh, oh, so cool. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Good call on the lint rollers, by the way. Good call on the lint rollers. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we're still in citizen comment area. So anyone else here that would like to comment can do so at this time. If not, we will move along. Thank you very much for your comments, everyone. Always, we appreciate it. Thank you. So we'll move on then to our consent agenda. Staff has presented the listed consent agenda items, and they were included in your meeting packet. Are there any changes or questions? Councilor Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to remove the approval agreement with Economic Development Council for Island County.
Okay, that is item number, which one is that?
C.
4C. Okay, then anyone else got any? So the other items will be approved as presented, and then we'll turn to Councilor Marshall for questions or input about 4C.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not opposed to the Economic Development Council of Island County at all. In fact, I completely support the work that they do and the work with our businesses. The question I had during workshop is how long has the EDC been around? And there wasn't an answer at the workshop, so I looked it up myself, and they've been around since 1985. And they were formed as a resolution of the county commissioners. So I'm having a hard time reconciling why an organization that's been around for 30 plus years all of a sudden needs money from us. So I support their work, but their funding sources, even when during the presentation, Ms. Sappington didn't say anything about getting monies from municipalities. And so I just don't support, and I apologize. So.
Okay. We will need a motion, or yes, Councilor Hoffmeyer?
Yeah, no need to apologize, that's for sure. But I move that we approve of the agreement with the Economic Development Council for Island County for consultant services.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, seeing no second.
Second.
Oh, okay, we do have a second. Good. Councilor Heisen, thank you. So we will then go to discussion. And I believe, and I don't know if we are ready to answer this question, but I believe we have supported the Economic Development Council for the last several years. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, we did
In some
2018.
fashion.
Yeah, in my report last time, 18, 19, and 20 under the mayor's authority, and then they did need money in 2021, and then the goal here is $10,000 a year. I think we had the $10,000 approval for 2021, and they only billed us for about $7,000 in services. But my kind of feeling is that the more money they get, the more they can invest in the community and more economic development vitality we get. But certainly it's a matter of preference, and you're raising some good concerns.
Okay. Turn to Mayor Pro Tem.
Is there a way, Mr. Oldburn, that we can find out from Mrs., the EDC director on how much the county actually allots to them each year, or do they only work on grants? I think we can probably still have the vote tonight. It was a good point that Councilman Marshall made. But is it possible? Would you check into that, please?
I
Is
think
it-
she's
or
here.
someone?
Yeah, Sharon, if she has the numbers off the top of her head, she can go ahead and present them. I remember seeing the budget as the executive director, but I don't remember the numbers as much as she would. Go ahead, Sharon.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, from Island County, we annually get $134,000 and $750. 134,750. And
Thank
we
you very
are
much.
we are under a contract with deliverables for that.
Councillor Evans.
What triggered the initial ask in 2018 to come to the city of Oak Harbor and not other municipalities to request additional funding?
Is that a question to me or to Blaine?
You can start
Whoever
that,
can
Sharon.
answer.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, when I started at the EDC in 2018, and the board wanted to really step it up on the value that we're providing to the county. So to do that, we just needed more resources to be able to do more programs. And so we reached out to the municipalities. Unfortunately, Langley and Coopville at the time said they didn't have the money. I'm going to be hitting them up again, by the way. So yeah, we just needed more resources to provide more value.
Yeah, and just a little bit follow up from that. I do sit on the diversified subcommittee that talks about funding and looks for opportunities to increase their funding so that they can provide more services.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Councillor Stuckey?
Some interesting thoughts. This $10,000, which isn't a lot, but every little bit adds up, admittedly. What is it? I mean, looking at the receipts that were given from 2019 and 2020, was assigned to something like Opportunity Zone and whatnot. This $10,000, how are you affected if you don't get it? And if you do get it, what exactly is it? I mean, is there a plan for it, or is it just into the general coffers?
You want to take a shot at
We
that?
we have in the last page of the proposed contract, we have in there the administration of grants or assistance on promoting the grants if we're not administering them. You know, this is across the road, across the whole county. However, we can track how much effort in some things, we can track how much effort we're putting into Oak Harbors to be able to put a number on that, and as well as, you know, for example, the business support. You know, we pay for Christina, and it's not cheap for, as you know, any kind of additional staff you have is not cheap. And so, you know, we didn't have Christina before. And so, you know, like I said, we brought her in 2020, and it's a challenge in our budget. It's a real challenge in our budget to do that. And there are some other things that we would really like to do. I mean, the board has been talking about other things that we would like to do, and some of the things we just can't do just because we don't have the resources to do it. But you know, whatever we can get more resources, we can start looking at those things that, you know, would be of great value to the county and to Oak Harbor. And then there's the one program too that's only for Oak Harbor, and that is the Heritage Bank Community Development Loan Program. That's only for Oak Harbor. So we're working on that. I've been working with Heritage to, you know, start really promoting that and talking to the businesses.
Councillor Hoffmeyer.
Yes, Mayor, would you allow me to ask a question of the Director of the Chamber? Is council okay with that?
Yeah, I don't have any problems with that. She's still here if she's willing.
Bottom of the ninth, you might be down by a run here. Okay. You know, I remember in one of the last meetings we had, Mayor Pro Tem pointed out how basically the chamber, you know, is in part a lot of our economic development. Since you were willing to speak on behalf of what Sharon does, what does their work mean to the businesses we have and the potentially incoming new businesses?
So their work, as before, if somebody came in and said, I need help, if we couldn't help them and we couldn't give them the information, then we sent them to the resource. Now we have a physical person who is an expert on this that can help them one-on-one and answer their questions instead of trying to read something online and trying to figure it out, or us trying to walk them through them. You've got an expert who can answer the questions. If it's not there, then where are you going to send them? Go to the web, pull up the data, figure it out on your own. What we learned through the CARES funding and all that, there were so many businesses, even local business here in Oak Harbor, that didn't understand the process of even going through how to apply for the CARES funding. This is a resource that is made available to everyone on the island plus Oak Harbor, and it has been a valuable resource to the businesses right here in Oak Harbor that it wouldn't have been available for.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you, Vicki.
Just for me personally, I think it's an incredible, bang for the buck. I think it's a wise investment. That's why I support this. Thank you.
Councilor Evans?
So last year, the EDC provided services to 25 Oak Harbor businesses, which roughly $700 per business. How many of those 25 were members of the EDC and paid their membership fee?
I can't answer that because as soon as I turn over a client to Christina, she can't talk about it because of the confidentiality.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Wiesner?
Sharon, could you share with us what your overall annual budget is, so we can kind of get an idea of, our investment as compared to your overall budget?
Sure, happy to. Our overall budget is a little over $200,000 because we also get funding from the Washington Department of Commerce. We get a lesser piece from them. And then we also have our membership dues that we're hoping for 10,000, 11,000 this year. So yeah, let's see, it would probably be like 220,000, I would say.
Okay. Well, I guess my thought here is, we have other, arrangements with, Island County Tourism and other organizations. Island County Tourism, I guess, is probably a pretty good example, right? Because that was actually formed, through a directive by the Island County Commissioners, and then Oak Harbor has joined into that. And I guess the whole theory behind that, right, is that pooling our resources, typically gets us more bang for our buck, right? Because what we do economic development wise with 10,000, we couldn't even hire somebody to come in for a week to do the consulting work that they're doing through the SBDC program. So I guess the question for us, right, is are we getting our 5% worth out of them? Because that's really our contribution to that. And I guess that's what we have to figure out. Mr. Oberon, you've been pretty vocal on this as far as where you see the benefits. Is there anything else you can weigh in?
To answer your question, in my opinion, and being on the board and the extra amount we have there, and there is some benefit. I'm giving a contribution because I could be a little bit easier on asking for services. And so just got an inquiry today about an opportunity for economic development from somebody who used to live here, and they want us to consider their program. And I'm going to go right to Sharon, and Sharon help me through this and see if this is something that we want to consider county-wide. And so I know we continue to do that. And I personally think in answering the question is, in my view, that we get 5% that you're looking at, but it's a judgment call on the council, and I respect the council.
Councilor Marshall?
Thank you, Mayor. Something that Ms. Sappington said kind of resonated with me, and that is that she asked for the extra money because they could do more with extra money. Well, we're kind of in that same boat as a city. There are things that we want to do, but we don't have the money to be doing it. And so this is where I still struggle with the idea of paying additional monies for a program that is going to be around whether we pay for it or not. It's been around for 30 plus years. I support its mission. I support what it does. I'm a business owner myself, But I think that there needs to be some buy-in from the business owners. If they are going to use the services, then perhaps there should be an expectation of paying for membership. It's the same with the Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce. You have to pay for membership in order to get services. And so I would think, because this is county-wide, because everybody in the county has an opportunity to take advantage of these services, I don't think Oak Harbor should be the one municipality that's saddled with having to pay the extra cost. So.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second at this point, and I'm wondering if we have any other input or questions. The motion is for the approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Oak Harbor and Economic Development Council for Island County for consultant services for the term of January 1, 2022 through December 31 of 2023. And authorization for the mayor to execute the professional services agreement on behalf of the city. So that's the motion and the second. So all in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. So we have 1, 2, 3.
And Councilmembers Heisen and Munz are voting in favor.
4, 5, and all opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes 5-2. Thank you very much. Good spirited conversation, and thank you very much. We will move on now. That concludes our consent agenda, and we'll move to item number 5A. Isn't that correct? Yes, mayor's comments. The boat launch ramp is open. Thanks to teamwork between the Marina and Public Works staff, more repairs are planned for the future. We thank the community for their patience following the damage that occurred in early April. As you know, we have insurance companies involved, and we are working on that, and we've been working with the state for replacement of that damaged piece of dock. The float remains out of service for the time being, but there is a plan to change that also. 4th of July festivities, thank you to the Oak Harbor Chamber. Already said it once, want to say it again. And all the sponsors for a great, wonderful celebration. The festival at Windjammer Park, the parade, and the fireworks were spectacular. Thank you very much. I know that is a tremendous amount of work. Thanks to staff, and I know that our chamber said that earlier, that we're deeply involved. Thank you very much. Donations to Ukraine. The Oak Harbor Police Department donated body armor to the people of Ukraine. You can learn more about this donation on the city's website under the latest news and on the police Facebook page. So we have a number of upcoming events. Here's a list coming up in our community. You will see the details for the events on the screen. Whidbey Island Farmers Market, Buskers on the Corner, Crab Cakes and Cocktails, National Night Out, and that's August 2nd at Windjammer Park. That's a unique crime prevention event involving citizens, law enforcement, and emergency personnel. We cordially invite you and the community to participate in this year's event with many free family activities for all ages. Just a reminder that in observance of the National Night Out, our City Council meeting for August will be on Wednesday, August 3rd. We also have upcoming events by the Harbor Vintage Market. So I don't know, are we able to turn to that here? By the Harbor, okay, Vintage Market. Hydros for Heroes. Oak Harbor Music Festival. So I think the date's there, September 2nd through the 4th. I know this is a 10th music festival. I cannot believe it's Music Festival number 10. Wonderful event for those. Please come join us. It's a lot of wonderful free music. So thank you. And that concludes my comment. I'll turn to council for any comments you might have at this point. And Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, Vicki, thank you. fantastic 4th of July. It'll be great to get a carnival back someday once they all get back in business, but you guys did a fantastic job under some adverse conditions, and did a great job. Secondly, I just wanted to make sure that staff is going to get back to the folks who had sent in comments regarding some of the speeding issues. It looks like we had 4 different comments regarding, problem areas in our community, and I wanted to make sure that staff was going to be getting back to those folks and following up on that. Thank you. And finally, to the rest of the folks who sent in comments, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. It's stuff that, we may not think we want to hear, but we need to hear, right? And we'll own every bit of it. And keep it coming, and it's important that we hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wiesner. Anyone else? Councilor Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, first of all, I want to again thank all those who have taken the time to communicate with council while expecting representation. That exchange between council and constituent is the very driving force behind why I serve. The continued calls for assistance on Northeast 4th or Northeast 16th with traffic issues, those are things that matter. The support that we see out in our community for the fire department. I don't think I've taken this bracelet off since Holland Happenings. It will definitely be on through November. It's pretty easy to wash your hands with it on. Not too big of a deal there. The parade that the Chamber of Commerce helped facilitate in the entire July 4th event, pretty amazing. What a special opportunity to be able to ride on that fire engine. I've been through the parade a lot of times, but never on a fire truck. I think every single person there was either clapping or waving. Pretty cool. With regards to addressing some of the public comment pertaining to our June 29th workshop and the press coverage it received, I'll repeat what I stated in that meeting. I want to know all of the facts of what occurred. I voted accordingly and will continue to vote for openness and transparency, and ultimately accountability. So the question remains, and I, along with the public, want to know the facts of what occurred and to what extent and duration these issues have persisted. Staff morale is something that the current council has been keenly focused on. Any actions eroding that work must be addressed. When a potentially emergent issue occurs, as it did on June 8th, I'm totally uncomfortable with waiting until August 3rd to even hear a full reporting of the facts. To Mr. Wright's point on this matter, it is staff who I am most concerned for as well. The people of Oak Harbor have already said enough is enough. That much was made clear in the past election. It is that very electorate who I am accountable to, whom I represent, and I want to make very clear, I hear them just as loudly as ever. Now, one more item that I'd like to address. I would like to see us get the Economic Development Coordinator position back on our agenda for either August or September. The direction of council seemed pretty clear that we'd like to see a detailed job description and some deliverables that we would expect to see. I would hope that the administration can work with council to assuage some of these concerns, and let's get going on creating some economic development. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Hoffmeyer. Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to address one of the public comments as well. I'd like to respond directly to Mr. Ronnie Wright's accusations of corruption on the council, and specifically naming myself. Mr. Wright has missed many points in his attack on council, his attack on Mayor Pro Tem Munns and myself. First, Mr. Wright accuses that Mayor Pro Tem Munns was able to submit information to the Whitby News-Times before she was able to be present at the council meeting. Well, as stated in the Whitby News-Times, and I'm quoting, then apparently in response to hearing Oborn was upset, Munns sent a letter to him on June 22nd in which she wrote that she regrets her confidential conversation was taken as a threat, end quote. I know I do not know the specific details personally of how the Times obtained the information, but the paper is pretty clear that they are referencing the apology letter that Mayor Pro Tem Munn sent to Mr. Oborn and the mayor. I would also like to point out the attempt to inflame the issue by adding his own interpretation of the events beyond what was reported in the papers, accusing Mayor Pro Tem Munns, and again I'm quoting Mr. Wright's public comment, quote, "they would be slapped or punched in the face." At no time have I heard these words. In fact, the Whitby News-Times, Mr. Wright's source of information states, again I'm quoting, quote, "would be hit or slapped if they attended the memorial service of a city employee who died," end quote. There was no mention of a punch to the face, as Mr. Wright exaggerates. So let's keep this to the facts. The next part of Mr. Wright's accusations that I'd like to address are, quote, "a hostile work environment," which resulted in directives being written on behalf of the mayor to city council. Let's talk about that for a minute. When the council passed a vote of no confidence on October 5th, 2021 against our city administrator, I would have expected that the mayor would have investigated these issues. As Mr. Mayor stated in his recent press release regarding the complaint about Mayor Pro Tem Munns, quote, "this is a serious matter that requires attention by city council, and as mayor, I am compelled to bring it forward for them to consider. Much in the same way that council members have brought forward requests for me to consider their recommendations for staff terminations because of concerns in the past." Mr. Mayor, following that vote of no confidence, was there an investigation? And if so, what were the results? I never saw those. I saw your response that lays the blame on the previous council, and it appears that this game is not yet finished. I read every single employee response. I categorized them, and I put them on a spreadsheet. And I brought that with me here today. And I'd like to hand this out to all council members. And I also brought some for the audience if they'd like a copy. Go ahead and pass that down. The results are in order of the city staff's biggest concerns. Number one was the city administration. Number two was retaliation. Number three was our city administrator, Mr. Oborn. Council doesn't even make the list until number 7, behind HR, the mayor, and a lack of positive feedback. This is concerning that we've swept this under the rug. These issues were not addressed, they were politically covered. It's time that we start doing the business of the people that we're supposed to be representing. Mr. Tiehouse, who also submitted a public comment, had these same concerns. I urge my fellow council members to join me in initiating a third-party investigation into the city administration regarding current and past staff concerns of workplace intimidation, fear, and retaliation. Regarding the accusations against Mayor Pro Tem Munns, I also have concerns regarding the actions of the Mayor Pro Tem, and I will be addressing those at the next City Council workshop as appropriate when the Mayor Pro Tem is here in person. Now I'd like to address Mr. Ronnie Wright's personal attack and accusation of corruption on the council. Last I checked, we live in a small town. We all work with people in the community. Mr. Stuckey works with family members in our community. Mr. Wiesner works with members of our community and investors in our community. Mr. Marshall works with members and business owners of our community. I also work with members of our community. If we as council are supposed to stop communicating with members of our community, the people that we're elected to represent, I must have missed that part. My company does have a contract with the, quote, developer on the hill, as Mr. Wright refers. That's the guy that's trying to build homes in our community. I'm pretty sure that that has been a big focus of council and a need for our community for quite a while under this current administration. I'm proud to work with the, quote, developer on the hill. He lives here, he's a resident, he's a taxpayer, and he's a voter. Mr. Wright also states that, referring to me, quote, he never recuses himself from conversations or matters pertaining to the project or issue. Well, as of today, we've had no issues brought before council that I would need to recuse myself. In fact, both projects that are in question had already been approved by the previous council. Another comment that Mr. Wright has made, that this, quote, developer reaches out to current and past council members to try to get his agenda. I would hope so. He's our constituent, and I'd hope other citizens would be doing the same. Numerous council members at every meeting beg for citizens to reach out to them, and now we're going to crucify someone for it. I'm not sure why communicating with your elected officials is suddenly a crime. And if Mr. Wright, who came so very close to sitting in one of these chairs, thinks that that's an issue, we dodged a bullet. I'm here to represent my constituency, our staff, my neighbors, my family, and my friends that live in this city. We need to stop these political attacks and games and finally get to work on the issues that are crippling the city. And Mr. Wright, I am too saying enough is enough. In closing, I'd like to make a motion that we conduct a third-party investigation of city administration regarding the current and past city staff and citizen concerns of workplace and citizen intimidation, fear, and retaliation. And I'd appreciate a second.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Okay, not seeing one. I guess that,
I'll second it.
okay. So we have a motion and a second. Now, Councilor Wiesner?
Thank you. Thanks for that, Mr. Evans. I don't have a speech typed up, right? But I guess I'm just going to say, last week we attempted, or last meeting, we attempted to have a discussion about some of these issues, right? And we attempted to bring it forward, and we attempted to discuss it, but yet it seems as though we're going to discuss this in piecemeal format. I mean, Mr. Evans here is addressing things that we haven't even been able to discuss here at council because council voted down the decision to discuss it. Yet, apparently, we're going to discuss it without discussing it. I want to hear. I want to get this out in the open. I want to have this conversation. Bringing it up again without discussing it is totally inappropriate. I mean, we've already let people stand at the podium and discuss the issue, the alleged intimidation by a council member, yet we want to divert and not talk about that right now. We want to set that aside, and yet we want to talk about intimidation by the administration and launch a formal investigation when we have a subject we need to be investigating right now that's a pretty serious subject. So again, I don't know why we're going to choose to discuss this, because we did. We just discussed part of the merits of the conversation that the council needs to have take place. We let public comment come in on a subject we haven't even discussed. I don't know everything I don't know about the mayor's conversations with the mayor pro tem. I'd like to hear what those were like. I don't know if there were other people here on the council who had conversations with the mayor pro tem. I know I had a conversation with the mayor pro tem, and I'm certainly willing to discuss what that was about, right? So I just don't get it. I don't get it. We can't have it both ways. We can't say that we want to go out and launch an investigation on staff for being intimidating when we as a council are sitting up here and we know we have an allegation of intimidation on a staff member by a sitting council member. We are here to regulate ourselves, folks. It's our job. Nobody else is going to do it. And I don't know that I can sit here on this dais and talk about how we care about staff and about how we want to increase communications with the public and how we want to hear the input, and then we shut down the conversation, and then we want to piecemeal this conversation. We want to just put it out there in little spurts. So I appreciate your passion, Mr. Evans. I really do. I'm passionate about what I'm saying right now. If we're going to talk about it, then let's talk about it. Let's talk about it right now. Let's no more innuendos, no more little pieces going out there, nobody posting their little, vision of it or side notes. If we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it. The people deserve that. The staff deserves that, right? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, so here's where we stand. We do have a motion and a second, and which Councilor Evans can read again. We don't have an agenda item set up for a discussion at this time. I don't think anybody had planned for this, but we certainly have a motion that we have to deal with. So I think there's more question and input about that. So I think Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. And Councilman Wiesner, I appreciate your comments. I too don't want to be discussing this right now, and I don't think that this is the right time or the right place to be doing this. I think that, however, we are being crucified with public comment because of actions that were taken. A meeting was scheduled without talking to all members of council, at least, I was unaware that a meeting was going to be scheduled. And I never would have approved a special meeting knowing that Councilmember Munns was not here. That's in fairness, I think, to any staff member, and I've said this to Mr. Oborn, that if he were accused of some wrongdoing and he were not here, I would not have the discussion unless he were here. We are being forced to have this conversation because our hand was played, and I don't appreciate our hand being played when this is not the right way to be airing out our dirty laundry. And if we're going to be fair, if we're going to talk about creating a culture, then we need to be fair to everybody, whether it be an accusation. And I think to Mr. Evans's point is that investigation should be for all of us. It should not be limited to just staff or administration. It should be limited. It should be all encompassing. Is council being intimidating? Is council being retaliatory? And so I don't see it as being exclusive. If this were to go through, I would not want it to be exclusive to Mr. Oborn, but to include all of council as well. And so I appreciate that, the fact that we are kind of talking about it piecemeal, but our hand was forced, and I don't appreciate that our hand was forced. And I don't know who called the special meeting. If it was you, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I tell you, I don't agree with it. I think that it was done prematurely, and it was unfair to Councilmember Munns, and that's the reason why I specifically asked that we table this until she has a chance to return, because I just think that's in fairness to anybody. I'm the newest council member. I'm trying to look at everything with a fresh set of eyes. I'm not trying to come in with any kind of preconceived ideas of what staff has done, what council members have done, but to look at every item freshly and individually and with a sense of fairness. And I think that the best thing for us to do is to talk about it with Councilmember Munns here so we can have the discussion. And so those are my thoughts on it, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, I think we have Councilor Heisen had her hand up first. Councilor Heisen?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Evans's motion regarding the third-party investigation, I'm not opposed to the idea, but I'm not going to vote yes just because third-party investigation isn't specific enough. I mean, I don't know what that would look like. I don't know who we would ask. What's the third party? What would the scope of it be? I have questions. So if we could iron out some of those details and then bring it back, then I think that that's a discussion worth having. And, everybody had some good points about whether or not this is, two different conversations or one conversation. There is, right now we're discussing the motion about a third-party investigation, which I've stated my feelings about. And then, but also council does need to have some further discussion about how we conduct ourselves, what we think is appropriate and what an appropriate response would be, because we are the only people that can hold each other accountable. So that certainly needs to happen, but we've established that needs to happen and exactly when it will happen. So, we'll get to it. There were definitely some inflammatory comments sent our way, and that's fine. We will definitely get to address, I think, all of those issues. So, Councilor Evans, again, I'm going to be voting no on your motion tonight, but that's just because I think that we need to really narrow down the scope and the details of exactly what third party look into the staff dynamics would look like. So just so you know, that's why I would vote no. And I'm looking forward, next month to having a larger discussion about council conduct amongst ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Heisen. Councilor Hoffmeyer?
There's a few things you'll never catch me up here at the dais doing. I will never make nor support a motion that's not on the agenda. I think that is the antithesis of open and transparent government. So from here on out, I will be a no on motions that aren't on the agenda. Another thing you'll never, this struck me earlier, and I too appreciated, Councilor Evans's passion, and I do it nearly every meeting we have. However, you're never going to catch me up here arguing semantics. You're never going to catch me up here arguing the difference between the word hit and punch. Just seemed like the ultimate deflection, and that's really all I have on this item. I think every one of us sitting up here is incredibly frustrated that we have been put in this position by other actions, and I think every one of us are probably owed an apology, honestly.
I think that Mayor Pro Tem Munns had her hand up next. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I will be glad to be back into town and to be able to see people's faces and have the information come out, have the truth come out. For third-party review, I would guess that most council members aren't familiar with what that is. I think Councilman Heisen's suggestion, I believe our attorney, Hillary Evans, would be able to help us with that, to explain what it is and what the rules are and how it's set up. And so I would look forward to having this motion come up again. Appreciate Councilman Evans' passion, but I think there's two things. There's my conduct that is in question, and because of the vote of no confidence that the last council took, and I don't believe it was ever really investigated, or at least I never heard any results. There was a survey put out, and you're absolutely right on how it was ranked, and I don't know if anything was ever, I don't remember a discussion or being invited to that on the results of that survey that different people filled out. So I don't know if we're ready to vote on that third-party review tonight, and then I look forward to facing all of you about my actions of what I said and what my actions were or weren't that seemed to be flying around. And I did not give an interview to Would-Be News Time, sorry. But anyway, those are my comments, and thank you very much, my fellow council members.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Turn to Councilor Stuckey.
So I think everyone on this dais has got some good points, and maybe I'm sounding super neutral here, but that's because I think we need to. I mean, it doesn't take much to take a look and realize there are teams or cliques that have been formed. Are you for administration? Are you against administration? Are you on, even with this issue, are you on Team Beth Munns? Or are you not on Team Beth Munns? I've had citizens from both sides call me both angry with how nobody's happy with how this has gone down, one way or another. So the two thoughts I have, because there should not be teams, there should not be cliques, there should just be facts, and each issue should be addressed on its own merits. And this may be a question for our city attorney, as opposed to having that meeting on August 2nd. Can we have a special meeting? And I agree, that special meeting before probably was not the best way to do it. Can we have a special meeting, because the public does deserve answers, and as much as we'd like to have conversations, we can't. We're supposed to have them here in front of the cameras, as we should, so the public can see everything that's going on. Can we have a special meeting to address these issues, two separate parts? Would that make sense at all? I mean, I really don't want to take up staff's time to add an hour or two conversation about what Councilman Evans has proposed and also what's going on with Beth Munns. Can we do a special meeting, I guess would be my question.
Yep, you can do a special meeting either by direction of the mayor or through a majority of council members for any reason.
Okay. Obviously, we're dealing with the motion.
There are no provisions that go along with that, but your clerk is very familiar with them. So.
Okay. I'll hold off on making a motion to that effect because we're currently discussing another motion. But I guess my only other question is, does the mayor would you like to address this at all? I mean, the comments that Councilman Evans suggested, I mean, kind of put everyone on the spot here. I'm not trying to put you on the spot as well. I'm just trying to give you an opportunity if there's anything you'd like to say to what Councilman Evans is talking about with administration prior and morale. Again, I'm just trying to hear your point. I'm not trying to throw you on the spot.
You know, not having an agenda item to speak to tonight, and then getting a lot of comments. I'm the sort that has to try to understand the true meaning of, you know, what is the concern. I was prepared a few weeks ago to go through some detail that have been going on for some time. I don't feel that I want to do that at this point because I don't know how many people have spoken about Mayor Pro Tem not being here and it not being fair. So it seems to me that we need to stick to that plan, and your idea of a special meeting, unfortunately, I think our staff has tried to get this meeting to happen as soon as Mayor Pro Tem is back, as soon as possible. But it sounds to me like August 3rd, you mentioned the 2nd, it's August 3rd, is the soonest we can have the entire council here. So that's what we have been told. So that's what staff understands. So as far as Mr. Evans's comments, you know, I don't think I have I don't think I have not done anything. And as far as any kind of an obligation after the vote of no confidence, I'm not sure. I don't think I was obligated to do anything other than be surprised like several other people. But in having said that, I got to tell you that that's been part of our problem ever since. Yes, council, or yes, staff has a meeting every morning following these meetings where our entire staff is involved in a meeting where we review the council's requests, we try to understand the council's concerns, and we do our best to communicate down to the employees of the city of Oak Harbor so that they know they're a part of this process. And when things happen at council that surprise me or any other counselor here, I can tell you it surprises staff oftentimes more than most people will realize. Our individual staff people, our individual departments may feel that they've had some statement made that really wasn't intended by council even, but that's why we have these weekly meetings and the communication that we do. And I believe in the last year that our city staff has gotten together more closely than they have been for a long, long time. Now, you'll find a few people here or there that are still not 100% happy with their jobs, and I suspect you'll find that in most organizations. But I believe the city of Oak Harbor staff and the morale of staff is as good. However, there's a concern today that we have to get to the bottom of, and I hope to do that on August 3rd. So I'm not going to try to say anything more about that at this point, except to tell you I'm in charge of staff, and I feel pretty darn good about where our staff is today and where they're going, where our departments are and where they're going. I feel pretty darn good about it. So that's all I have to say.
I appreciate that, Mayor. And you're right. Sometimes our roles get a little bit muddied. You are in charge of personnel issues, and that is not what we're in charge of. Your personnel issues, and we're legislative. So I appreciate that. I agree with Hoffmeyer. I would have a hard time putting something on the agenda that was not on the agenda. Open to future discussion, but that's kind of where I stand. So I appreciate your comments, Mayor, and we'll move forward with the motion as is presented.
Well, thank you. I see Councilor Heisen still has your hand up? Or?
That was a mistake, sorry.
Oh, no problem. So we have a motion and a second, and Councilor Evans, I'll turn back to you.
So I want to be clear. Number one, Councilmember Hoffmeyer, there was no deflection. It was a simple point that there was no threat to hit anybody in the face. I could care less whether it was a punch or a slap. It was inflammatory. Second, this is not a new issue, guys. This came up in October of last year, and nothing was followed up on it. In fact, Councilmember Wiesner is quoted as requesting an investigation and looking forward to the results. We've never seen the results. I hear from people around this town that inquire about this. And looking at the results of these employee surveys, it is clear that we do have an issue going on here, regardless of how you feel about it, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your comments. However, we do need to get to the bottom of it. I have zero problem amending a motion or addressing a motion down the road that would include council. Bottom line, we need to address it. We can't just brush it under the rug and move on, which has been going on since October. So we're going to let this motion pass. This will never be addressed, and we're going to be in the same spot that we were. I'd like to address the Mayor Pro Tem Munn's issue as well. That's not the motion. And the issue with Mayor Pro Tem Munn's, that, again, was taken out of our hands and it was thrown in front of the public. My comments are based on public comment from, including a former staff member that requested a third-party investigation because he's still talking to staff. So my comments are not unfounded or unfactual. Everything in my comments is quotes from resources that I can provide to any one of you. So I appreciate your guys' time, and whether this fails the motion tonight, I hope we don't let this slide.
Could you read the motion again?
Happily. Motion that we conduct a third-party investigation of city administration regarding the current and past city staff and citizen concerns of workplace and citizen intimidation, fear, and retaliation.
Councilor Stuckey.
Mayor, am I correct in that you have a comment box that staff can put comments in and it can be anonymous? Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm not suggesting that staff email us directly because, again, that's kind of circumventing the personnel issue. But regardless of where this sits, you're saying things have gotten better. And to what I can observe in my little world, it seems to have been. We had a great workshop, okay? And I don't want to say reopening these own wounds because, to your point, sweeping things under the rug. I get that too. But there's kind of a distraction of we're here to move the city along and continuing to talk about this and continuing to go on. And, it's a distraction from the great work that we're trying to do. So I would encourage city staff, if there are folks that have issues, to use that comment box, use it anonymously, have those comments sent to us, and that can kind of help us gauge the pulse of are things getting better or not by having staff let us know through that comment box, which is anonymous. So I would encourage city staff who thinks that things are going great or that things have never been resolved to use that comment box. Those comments will be hopefully sent to us as well. And I mean, that could give us a better pulse of are things getting better or not, in my opinion.
Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you. I'd just like to follow up with the fact to let the staff know who did not see their comments come up on the public comments, who did present some anonymous comments. We did get them. Every one of us, I'm assuming. I certainly got them. Julie's giving me a nod, and everybody else giving me a nod. So I do want to make sure to assure those staff that when you do submit an anonymous comment, it is being sent to us. We saw them. We see them. Julie's very fastidious about sending them. We read them. I just want to make sure staff understands that. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. Councilor Hoffmeyer.
I could go on for days on this. I think we all could, but I'm ready for the vote.
So I assume everybody else is ready. All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 here. I don't see any voting. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem? Okay, so that fails 2 to 5. Okay, okay. Okay, well, other council, yes. Okay, okay. We're ready to move on?
It's been a long 97 minutes. Can we take a 5 minutes?
Take a 5-minute break? Okay, we'll break for 5 minutes and come back at 7:42.
You got 2 bottles in front of you. Open to the IV.
What's that? Do you have 8:30? Me? No, I thought you were No. Yeah, I don't think you need 8:30 thing already. Although I'm not saying I never thought they never have.
I was going to say.
I have no control.
I was going to say, do you have any control? I mean,
You know you have a fancy glass.
Thought it wasn't the day before.
Okay, I'm going to reconvene our regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. Today is July 12th. We've been on just a 5-minute recess, and so we'll reconvene the meeting and start with item number 6A on the agenda, which is ordinance number 1953, residential density standards. And I believe we have our Development Services Director, David Kuhl, and/or our Senior Planner, Ray Lindenberg, or maybe a combination of both. So, I see Ray. Welcome, Ray. Are you all alone?
Can you hear me okay?
I can. We can hear you. Yes.
Great. Okay, well, I will get my presentation started here in just a moment. And this is an item that we've discussed before. It's been before the Planning Commission for consideration and review and a positive recommendation. So let me start a brief presentation here, and then we'll go ahead and discuss if we need to and answer any questions if you have any. So without further delay, I'll get that up on the screen. Can everybody see that okay? I'm going to assume that's a yes. I've got a tiny little picture on there.
Sorry about that. Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so what we have here are the standards for residential dimensional standards in the code, and we did some revisions on those as we discussed previously. And basically what this goes back to the adoption of the Housing Action Plan from 2021. That was adopted in June of that year. There are 20 recommended actions, and some of the recommendations were to investigate the reduction in minimum lot size and increasing density per unit, units per acre numbers to allow for greater density, lower housing costs, and to allow for easier infill projects. And so we got some grant funding on that. The implementation was based on the recommendations that were in the HAP. So that's what we have been working through the process the first part of this year. And the goal being to get these standards adopted so that we can move forward with some of the other recommended actions that were within that plan. So this is kind of the first step that we've gone through in the Housing Action Plan implementation. So like I said, the two recommended actions that were considered to be high priority were the reduction of the minimum lot sizes and an updating bulk regulations to encourage missing middle housing. And those bulk regulations have to do with like setbacks and lot sizes and dimensional standards, essentially. So what we did is we went through a process where we identified our peer cities. This is a list of our peer cities that we've identified in the past and used for other ordinances. To determine what their dimensional standards were. And essentially what we found out is that most cities, nearly all of them honestly, had much smaller minimum lot sizes than the city of Oak Harbor did. And some of them had actually removed minimum lot sizes entirely, relying on either density by units per acre that they found either in their code or in their comprehensive plan, or just allowing some of the other measurements essentially to guide those lot sizes, like minimum width times a minimum depth of a lot, creating a de facto minimum lot size, still having those minimums in there to allow for dimensions that allow essentially homes to even be built on lots. We don't want to create unbuildable situations or situations where we have lots that are so narrow or so kind of oddly configured that we have houses that are just garages or just blank walls or things like that. So we're trying to bring it down to a reasonable size, but still allow development that is attractive and safe and functional for the community. So this is kind of a basic chart of our current standards as they are right now. We have our minimum 7,200 square foot lot size in the R1 zone and then 6,000 square feet in the other zones. We have minimum lot width and depth of 60 feet by 90 feet for most of those zones. Maximum building coverage ranging between 35 and 45%. And then we have our setbacks that include 20 feet in the front, 5 and 12 on the sides, and 20 feet in the rear. And those vary a little bit by our zone districts, but I'm kind of going through R1 because that's honestly the most common zone district by square footage that we have in the city and number of lots that we have in the city. And this potential zone change will affect that zone district the most. As you can see, we have recent subdivisions down there in the yellow portion, just kind of showing some of those lot size differentials. We went through a lot of PRD process with recent subdivisions because most are looking for much smaller lot sizes. And so hopefully the intent here is to allow a little bit more flexibility within the development world to get some of those smaller lot sizes without having to go through the additional process and the additional mitigations that we have for these, but still come up with a quality product that's acceptable to the community at large. So we came up with two different alternatives for kind of concepts for creating new changes to it. And the first one here is the lot size concept. And I put that in air quotes because it's guided by a minimum lot size dimension. And that minimum lot size dimension is 4,000 square feet. And so if we go through and change those minimum lot sizes, we end up having to change the density standards for some of these zone districts anyway. And so what we went from that was to go to a density concept. If we're already changing the densities, why not just have the densities guide the lot sizes? And so in this density concept, which we went through and talked about with the Planning Commission and the City Council, this was what we were instructed to kind of pursue, and that's what we did, is we slightly increased the density standard in the R1 zone district, going up to 9 units per acre maximum. We changed the minimum density in the R2 and the R3 zone districts to kind of create a more discrete stratification between those two, if you will, or between the different zone districts. So there's a clearer distinction between what is allowed in an R1 versus an R2 or an R3 zone. We still have minimum lot width and depth dimensions, and those have been changed to 40 feet by 80 feet. So essentially what we do have here is a 3,200 square foot minimum lot size. In practice, that's what it would be. If somebody came in with rectangular lots in those dimensions, that's what the minimum lot size would be. Accordingly, we changed the maximum building coverage up to 45% in the R1 zone district. The others remained the same at 45%. The setbacks we changed in the front on all of these zone districts from R1 through R4. We have a 20/10, and what that indicates is a 20-foot setback for a garage to allow for parking in front of that garage, and then 10 feet to living space, which can include porches, bay windows, or the actual building itself. And that's not to say that all these buildings or all these homes are going to be 10 feet away from the sidewalk. It just says that they can be if the developer chooses to do it that way. We moved from a 5 and 12 foot side yard setback to 5 and 5. And then we standardized the rear setbacks at 20 feet through all zone districts. Now, what we feel on these is this is a good compromise between what is being requested in a lot of the PRD subdivisions and what we have existing now. We still feel like there's appropriate amounts of spacing in between homes on the sides. There's some flexibility in the front now to come down to a little bit smaller front setback and increase the kind of community feel if you have those front porches that come out towards the street and a little bit closer to the sidewalk. Still maintain privacy. And again, if somebody wants to build 20 feet or 30 feet away from the sidewalk, they can certainly choose to do that. And so if there is a desire by a developer to go to even smaller setbacks, say for instance, doing a 0 lot line development where they have 5 feet on one side and 0 on the other or something along those lines, we can still go through a PRD process. As staff, we felt that it was still valuable to have that process to do a little bit more dense or kind of outside the typical paradigm for development in the city, just so we're kind of covered in that situation where there's a little bit different kind of feel going on with regards to development. So to go through the proposed code changes by zone district, in the R1, we're looking at increasing the maximum density, removing the minimum lot size, the reduction in the lot width and depth, reductions in setbacks, increasing the maximum lot coverage, and then having a separate garage setback. In the R2 district, we're doing the same thing, and then we're also increasing the minimum density. In R3, we're carrying through those items from R1 and also increasing the minimum density, a revision to a taller structure setback, and then specific language regarding entrances to parking structures. And essentially what's going on there is if we have a situation where a multifamily project is looking at doing structured parking, essentially an underground parking garage or an attached parking garage or something along those lines, then that portion of the structure doesn't have to meet the 20-foot setback as long as there's not parking occurring in the driveway that leads to that structure. And that will hopefully allow for, greater flexibility for denser type projects to maintain setbacks that make sense and aren't using up a lot of land to get to a parking lot, or we're not encouraging parking lots because we're making it difficult for parking garages to exist. Same thing in R4. We don't have any changes to the density regulations, but we did make that same exception for a parking garage as far as the setbacks are concerned. In the RO district, this was something that inadvertently got taken out when we went through the land use matrix. We wanted to make sure that we have density standards that apply to residential projects in the RO district. When we went through the matrix revisions, we accidentally took out a section that referred RO residential projects back to R4 density standards, so we put that back in here. We didn't have any situations where it became a problem, so we were fortunate in that situation. So we're putting it back in and don't anticipate that there'll be any issues with that. We did get public comment to the Planning Commission, and that's included in your packet. I'm not going to read all of that, but it does address some of those zero lot line situations, and I think some of the situations where we should maintain the PRD process. As staff, like I said, we discussed that and kind of feel like we're on the right path with maintaining the PRD for some of the more dense or kind of outside that typical box development. And so what we have tonight is recommended action. We had a positive recommendation from the Planning Commission at their May 24th meeting. We're going to open it up to any discussion or questions you might have here, and then I have a motion to adopt the ordinance attached to the agenda bill. So if you have any questions, I am happy to help.
Thank you, Ray. Before we turn to council, I guess at this time I'd like to open the public meeting and then confirm with our city clerk that we've either had no input from our public. Is that correct? Okay.
No additional public comment other than what was sent to the Planning Commission.
Okay, great. And you have that in your packet, so at this point, we'll close the public meeting and turn to council for questions, comments, discussion. Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks for that presentation, Ray. Very clear, distinct. Appreciate that. This is a recommendation that came forward about 5 years ago from the Affordable Housing Task Force. It was one that when we came up with the recommendation, we felt would probably be one of the biggest single drivers of creating of more affordable housing in Oak Harbor. And, I'm not talking about, low-income housing or anything. I'm just talking about making housing in general affordable. Land costs have continued to drive up. The infill within the city, I think the wind development was a perfect example. That's a development where we could have, with these current codes, could have had twice the density in that development, which would have driven down the price of that dirt by half, which would have driven down the price of those houses back there in theory. And that's what we're seeing in other towns. We're seeing the infill projects that are allowed to have these densities that they're creating, more affordable type housing. This stuff has always been available through the PRD process, so this is nothing new. I mean, you could have these type of reduced setbacks. In fact, some of the new development which we've got have got 3-foot setbacks on each of the lot lines for 6 feet between the houses, and that's done through a PRD process. But the problem is with infill housing, the smaller properties, the PRD process is very lengthy and very, very expensive to hire the folks to go through all the submissions, and it's a very lengthy process. And, to do it for a 4-lot short plat, in the past just didn't make sense. And so that 4-lot short plat became 4 lots instead of 8. To put it in perspective, just a couple of years ago, there were some infill individual lots that were purchased in Oak Harbor, and they were running between $50,000 and $60,000 for a bare lot that had city utilities. Last year, the only infill lot that I'm aware of in Oak Harbor, there was an individual lot that was sold for $155,000. So the cost of dirt has doubled, and it's just due to lack of it. So this it's going to be a great thing. It's something certainly that I've been pushing for. It just makes a lot of sense that as we do build out what property we have left in the city that's infill, that we build it to a density that makes sense for the market. Now, just because we're passing this ordinance doesn't mean that the developer has to create smaller lots, doesn't mean the developer has to create smaller setbacks. It just gives the opportunity to, in those housing developments where that's going to make sense. The market's going to drive this. If people don't want to have houses that close together, then they're not going to buy them. But this does give the flexibility. I want to point out it is putting us on an even plane with the other surrounding communities around us. We've talked about why is it developers don't come from outside of our community to develop some of these niche housing pieces. I mean, you look at some of the developing going on in Anacortes right now, which is creating some. Again, I don't want to misconstrue the word affordable, but more affordable workforce housing. I don't know that we can use the word affordable and Anacortes in the same sentence, but the reality is, the builders are building there because they can get the densities they need to make the projects work, and this is going to be an opportunity for us to be on an even kilter with the surrounding communities. So certainly something I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wiesner. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. A little hard going page to page. Ray, on these garages or carports, that has to be 20 feet for the car to be able to enter into the garage and or into the carport. If you have multiple family housing, let's say a group of apartments or condos, how many parking spaces must that project provide? Is that part of this also?
It's not. Our parking standards are found in a separate section of the code, but typically, just to answer your question quickly, for a single family house, for instance, we require 2 parking spaces. In practice, a lot of people use their garages for storage and ping pong tables and whatever else. So we just want to make sure that driveway is long enough that you can still park vehicles there and not overhang the sidewalk or create, street congestion.
Okay, good. I just wanted to be sure on that. And if someone, let's say they already own a lot and we're planning to build a home, they don't have to shrink it down unless they want to develop it. So they have a choice.
They have a choice. Say, for instance, that lot that sold that Mr. Wiesner was talking about, they don't have to do anything with that lot. If it's already a legally created lot and more than the minimum lot size, then they're good to go. And they don't have to use a 5-foot setback. That's just the minimum. So this should not affect anybody who owns existing property. It's just going to affect future development. And, like I said, they don't have to go down to that minimum lot size. They can still do 7,200 square foot lots if they choose.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Councilor Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, as Councilor Wiesner pointed out, this housing action plan, came forward, I guess, 4.5 years ago. I remember, I think it was roughly 6.5 years ago, Mayor, that you reached out to me while I was working with another government agency on this. I remember having a conversation with George Saul at the time as well. So that recommendation was 4.5 years ago. The work began even before that. And I don't think a lot of people out there, unless they've sit in this chair or, you know, have worked in a similar setting, I don't know that the average person appreciates how nuanced and, you know, slow some of these processes can be. You know, this is a case to where staff deserves a ton of credit. You know, the current council, a ton of credit, and I think past council as well. But to see this finally get across the finish line, this is the reason that we are here, to try to make the average person's life a little easier. So very happy to see this and very, very supportive of it.
That almost sounded like a motion. Anyone else? Any motions? Yes, Councilor Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 1953, amending the Oak Harbor Municipal Code, Chapter 19.20, Articles 2 through 6 regarding density standards in residential zone districts.
Second.
Okay, you've got a motion and a second. I'll give that second to Councilor Wiesner. A motion by Councilor Marshall. Reads exactly like the recommended action in the packet. Any other questions or input? If not, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay. That's unanimous. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Ray, and all of staff, and thank you, council. We'll move on to ordinance, or item number B, which is ordinance number 1955, Crosby Villa rezone. Now, this is a little different because this was a closed record review, but so that all noted comment has actually been taken by the hearing examiner, so it's not an opportunity for public comment, but we open a public hearing anyway, which is kind of weird. But we can't take any public comment. So with that, we'll close that public hearing and go to council for any kind of input or questions you might have. Councilor Stuckey.
I did watch that hearing examiner proceeding, and man, if you think city council meetings are a rip-roaring good time, woo! Watch yourself, hearing examiner proceeding. Listening to the comments of those that were opposed to it, which were mostly homeowners nearby, which mostly were concerned about property values. I understand that, but you always take a risk when you buy a home that something could happen to the property next to you. But there was a lot of concerns about traffic. I understand in our CIP plan that road was rated a B, which isn't too bad. But do we have some more ideas on what sort of things are going to be used to mitigate the traffic issues that are concerning the citizens on that road?
So I guess I'll turn to see if we have our Development Services Director or, oh, Ray, by golly. Ray, you want to take a shot at that?
I can, yes. So the distinction here and the thing that's important here is currently the property is zoned R2, which on that parcel would allow up to 47 units. We're talking about going to R3, which would allow up to 62 units. So we're talking about a difference of going from 47 to 62. So it's not like we're going from 1 to 62 or 3 houses to 62 or something like that. That being said, as with all projects, there will be a traffic study required for that. Our engineering staff has reviewed this and looked at it. There was a pre-app on it. There were no concerns from engineering staff regarding any quote traffic problems like creating a failure at an intersection or anything along those lines. There'll be essentially an additional 15 or so trips in the evening at the what they call the peak evening hour. So there's not a huge difference from what could happen, what could be developed right now in R2 to what could be developed at an R3 if you approve that. And also, I know there was a lot of concern at the previous hearing about people, pedestrians and joggers and bicyclists and things like that all along Crosby, the ability to walk safely along there. Any project that is developed on that parcel will be required to construct frontage improvements. And to be perfectly honest, that is a very shallow and wide property. And in order to make those improvements, Honestly, the developer needs to maximize the number of units that they can get on there to pay for it. And in order to pay for, essentially creating entirely new curb gutter and sidewalk along there is an expensive endeavor. So there is that, and it will be completed with any project that's done along there.
Thank you. And I especially like, and I actually had in my notes here talking about, I mean, they can do 47 units already. So for those that are concerned about their property values, I mean, the owner has the ability to put those there. This is just a small increase in those number of units. But as to one person did write, if these do go through, it would be nice to see speed bumps perhaps or something of that nature. But that's down the line. That is not this conversation here. But yeah, I like the idea and glad to see to help move it forward.
Councillor Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, this is something that I actually had quite a few people reach out to me on. I happen to live about 200 feet from this location. I can't hit it with a baseball, but my kid can. I think it's important to note that the developer can already put 47 units in there. So we're only talking the difference between 47 and 60. I do sympathize with those in Red Wing that are going from having an open field in their backyard, if you will, to an apartment complex. But every one of us has either here or while out in the community talked about affordable housing and making things easier for developers. And, at the risk of making one of my favorite doctors in town mad at me, I get it, but again, we're talking the difference between 47 and 60 units, and I think this is something that we have to support.
Councillor Wiesner.
Thank you. I guess I have a few thoughts on this, and I guess the thought, and I don't know, Ray or Blaine, or help me out here. What kind of precedents does this set? Does this mean that, anybody with an R2 property in the City of Oak Harbor can expect to come into City Hall and rezone it to R3?
Go ahead, Ray.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that it creates a precedent. Anybody can do that. You could take an R1 to an R3 also. The thing to consider here is that a few years back when we did our comprehensive plan revisions back in 2016, we went from a point where every zone change required a comprehensive plan change. And the reason that we made changes was to make it easier for people to do zone changes, to speed the development process, help affordable housing, all these things that we talk about. And what we did is we categorized things. We put them into categories. So you have R1 through R3 is one category, R4, RO, and C1 are in a different category. So anybody who has an R1 parcel of land could go up to R3 without a comprehensive plan amendment. Because what we've determined as staff, as professional planners, that the impacts of those zone districts are similar enough that we don't need to go through a full comprehensive plan process. And so what we're doing here is going from an R2 to an R3, which is even less of a change than going from an R1 to an R3. But to answer your question, yes, anybody could do that, but it's not necessarily a precedent. It's always been that way. Anybody can do that, but it hasn't happened a lot because there aren't large chunks of land that are appropriate for, apartment type development. The interesting thing about this particular parcel is that there will be no through traffic. They're not going to go off of a stub road into Red Wing or another subdivision. It's going to be entirely self-contained and exit and enter off of Crosby, which makes it a lot easier from the standpoint of you're not feeding a whole bunch of traffic through an existing single-family neighborhood, which I totally get. I understand why people are concerned about that. This is not even happening there. So
other than the aesthetics coming in some people's backyards, there's going to be very little impact. Crosby Road's an arterial, isn't it?
It is.
So it's designed to actually take another 20 years worth of traffic, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. And this property does abut up against another R3 property. That's correct, right?
That is correct. The mobile home park there, I forget the name of it right now.
Parkwood Manor?
Yes.
So we're not creating an island of density. Well, one thing we've always talked about, is healthy neighborhoods or those diverse neighborhoods. And I think other cities around us who have been a little ahead of the curve in planning and code changes have kind of showed that, where, creating, neighborhoods with some R1, R2, R3 all mixed within the neighborhood tend to actually be fairly healthy neighborhoods. I certainly understand the neighbors' concerns, but, we are talking about a road that is an arterial. It's been an arterial for a long time. It's not being changed to an arterial from a, quiet little country road or a neighborhood road. I get the aesthetics deal, right? But the aesthetics isn't a reason to, slow down or stop a development. And developers have the right to develop their property, and obviously the city's got codes, for landscaping, screens, and all those things that are come into play. So I guess I just want to make sure I understand. This is just the first step in the process. This clears the path for them to come in with a binding site plan, which then we'd have a traffic study, and we would have all of the steps that we would normally have in a proposal for a development moving from here forward, including all the safety and high road widening and traffic impacts and everything else. So, I certainly would have to agree with Mr. Hoffmeyer. This is again, a way to create housing that, could be more affordable for the people here. Obviously, if the developer can spread the cost of putting in that infrastructure and can spread it over, 13 additional units, my math says that those units should be more affordable. So, something I would certainly support. Thanks.
Okay, any other input or questions? Motions? Yes. Councilor Hoffmeyer.
I move to accept the hearing examiner's recommendation and adopt ordinance number 1955, approving the rezoning of 3.92 acres of land, consisting of one parcel, R1334-385-2230, from limited multifamily residential R2 to multiple family residential R3.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. That motion reads exactly like the motion recommended action in your packet. Motion made by Councilor Hoffmeyer, second by Councilor Stuckey. Seeing no other input or questions, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. Does that pass? Unanimously? Okay, thank you, Council. We'll move on then to item number 6. What is that, 6D at this point? 6C, I'm sorry. It is. And for this, this is ordinance number 1954, amending the 2021-2022 biennial budget mid-year 2022. And we have our finance director, Mr. David Goldman. David?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, David Goldman, Finance Director. This is our annual mid-year budget amendment. This amendment is an annual true-up budget amendment that takes into account City Council actions and annual grants that have occurred year to date. So the list of the items on this amendment start with the $50,000 for the T-Mobile Hometown Grant Funds and associated expenses for the replacement of the Windjammer Park Lagoon Dock. There's also $10,000 to amend the budget to recognize the fire grant funds. That's not a misspelling. And that comes from the Department of Labor and Industries, and also the associated expenses to purchase firefighter bunker gear. $4,598 to amend the budget to recognize the Washington State Association of Sheriff and Police Chiefs Traffic Safety Equipment Grant Funds, and the associated expenses to be used to purchase traffic safety equipment. We'll try to get that extra $2 next year to bring it up to an even $4,600. There's $70,000 to amend the budget to recognize the 2021 to 2023 Stormwater Capacity Grant Funds from the Department of Ecology and associated expenses for the upgrade of the NPD ESP, I guess that's the NPDAS Pro system. $56,500 to amend the budget to appropriate Washington Department of Commerce Housing Action Plan implementation grant funds and associated expenses to be used for the implementation of Oak Harbor's Housing Action Plan. And finally, $12,000 to amend the budget to appropriate the Washington Cities Insurance Association risk reduction grant funds and associated expenses to be used for concrete and concrete disposal for replacing city sidewalks that are in need of repair. So this is a public hearing, so the first recommendation is to hold the public hearing and then to move to adopt the ordinance as seen on the screen. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. So at this point, I'd like to open the public hearing and turn to our city clerk to find out if we've received any public comment on this item.
No, Mayor, we received no public comment.
Okay, then I'll close the public comment period, or the public hearing, and turn to our council for questions, comments, or discussion, or motions. Yes, Councilor Wiesner.
Mr. Goldman, just to make perfectly clear, these are all budget amendments that have income that was not expected, that we're getting from grants, and we have expenses equal to the grant income, and we don't have expenses exceeding the amount of additional money we have coming in.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I can't see the screen. Any questions from either of the other council? Okay, in the meantime, Councilor Stuckey.
Yeah, I move to adopt ordinance number 1954, Budget Amendment 9, amending the 2021-2022 biennial budget, and adopt an updated wage and salary schedule and plan of classification.
Second.
Second.
We've got a motion to adopt. The motion reads exactly like the recommended action in the packet. That motion was made by Councilor Stuckey, and the second we'll give to Mayor Pro Tem Munns. Any other questions or input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. Does that pass unanimously? That passes unanimously. Okay, we're on a roll. Let's go to item number 7. Is it 7 or no? I don't think I'm on 7A. 7A it is. Okay, sorry about that. And 7A is a resolution 22-17 public safety fire levy lid lift. And we still have our finance director on, and I believe certainly our city attorney Hillary Evans is part of this, it sounds like. But we'll turn first to Finance Director David Goldman.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me share the screen here. So let me move this over here. This is a close-up of the agenda packet. So we have met multiple times over the past 2 years and probably beyond the last 2 years to talk about the best way to fund improvements to our response times for our fire service activities. Over the past few meetings, we have narrowed things down to doing 2 different ballot items. One is a levy lid lift to pay for new firefighters and equipment and replacement, fund fire equipment operating and capital costs, improve firefighter health, and fund a replacement engine, all with the goal of improving response times. And the other item, which we'll hear next, is for a excess levy to pay for a bond in order to fund a new fire station in the southwestern portion of town to increase response times. But the subject of this item is the levy lid lift, and that will fund the items I mentioned. More specifically, it'll fund 7 new firefighters and 2 fire lieutenants in addition to the replacement fire engine and the other items that I talked about just a little bit earlier. So this will help increase the safety of our citizens and our business community and the visitors to Oak Harbor, and should also help mitigate the chances of a ISO insurance rating reduction, which, should that occur, would detrimentally impact property owner insurance costs. So the last time we did discuss this, we talked about the ballot language. So we incorporated some of the items that the City Council had proposed for the ballot language. This can be seen right here in the resolution for the adoption of this ballot language for the levy lid lift. I can read it off for you. The Oak Harbor City Council adopted Resolution 22-17 concerning funding for fire protection response time improvements. This proposition would provide funds to add firefighters, vehicles and equipment, and improve firefighter health and safety, and fund fire operating and capital costs. It authorizes a maximum regular property tax rate for collection in 2023 of 2.4886 per thousand of assessed valuation. That's an estimated increase of approximately 0.6656 per thousand of assessed valuation. The 2023 levy amount will be used for the purpose of computing the limitations for subsequent levies under RCW 84.55. We believe that working with the attorneys, that covers everything that was discussed. This will appear on the actual ballot. In addition, we have language for the maximum 200-word explanatory statement that will appear in the voter's guide that we could move to next if there are no concerns or updates or feedback regarding this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goldman. We'll take these one at a time, and I want to turn to our city clerk. This doesn't require a public hearing, but I want to make sure we've had no comment.
No, Mayor, we have had no comment on this
Okay.
item.
And then anybody here that might wish to comment could, but okay, then I'll turn to council for questions. Yes, Councilor Wiesner.
Well, you know, it's never a good time to raise taxes and probably one of the worst times to do, but the reality is, you know, I'm going to support this because it's going to the vote of the people, right? The people are going to speak, and, you know, I'm not going to stand in the way of hearing what the people think about this. But with that said, I would certainly like, whether this passes or not, to sit down and discuss future funding of fire long-term. You know, I don't want to find ourselves 10 years from now when we've got a ladder truck that we know that's been very well maintained, but eventually, you know, there's going to be a time when we're going to have to replace it. And right now, I don't know that we have a logical, long-term capital funding improvement for either our fire department or our police department. And so I would like this to end up being part of a bigger discussion as we move forward. I want to start looking at that 10 years out and that 20 years out and 30 years out and what the needs for those essential services are going to be within the community. And then I'd like to figure out a way we can be building up funds so that we're not going to the taxpayers, you know, after the fact. Obviously, bonding costs the city money. You know, we're borrowing money, and I would rather be able to, you know, we know these services are going to be needed 20 or 30 years from now. We know these are essential services that the city must provide, and so I'd like to see us start that discussion of how we're going to fund them long-term outside of these type of levies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wiesner. Anyone else? Councilor Hoffmeyer?
I think I've made it pretty clear since this process started. I couldn't be more supportive of this. You know, I think there's some times in life to where I think you know you're sitting exactly where you're supposed to. I know our fire chief feels that way as well. I have seen firsthand the horrifically tragic outcome that a slow response can have. I could not be more supportive of putting this to a vote of the people and letting them have a say in their public safety. I knew this would pass. Sitting in that fire truck in the parade on July 4th, there is not a doubt in my mind, and I'm looking forward to November.
Okay, anyone else? Any comments? So the recommended action is a pretty long motion. Councilor Stuckey.
Motion to approve City of Oak Harbor
Resolution 22-17, providing for a ballot proposition to be submitted to the qualified electors of the city on November 8th, 2022, in conjunction with the state general election to be held on the same date, of a proposition authorizing the city to levy regular property taxes in amount in excess if the limitations provided in Chapter 84.55 RCW to provide for the provision of public safety services and equipment, setting forth the ballot title therefore, requesting that the Island County Auditor place the proposition on the November 8th, 2022 ballot, designating the city attorney and the city clerk to receive notice of ballot title from the auditor and providing for related matters.
Second.
Oh, I should mention, according to a recently passed RCW, that motion had to be made in one breath.
I think he did it. So we have a motion and a second, and it reads exactly like the recommended action. Motion made by Councilor Stuckey, second by Councilor Hoffmeyer. All in favor signify by raising your hand, your right hand, please.
Mayor, that passes unanimously.
Great. Okay, we'll move on to 7B. Thank you. And I think 7B also includes, looks like, this is public safety fire excess levy. And I'll turn back to our finance director, David Goldman, again.
Okay, thank you. I'll go right to the ballot language. I'll just read this off. This is for the bond. This is for the excess levy that we've been discussing over the past few meetings. I'll just read it off. The Oak Harbor City Council adopted Resolution 22-18 concerning funding for fire protection response time improvements. This proposition would authorize the city to acquire property, construct and equip a second fire station, and acquire a new ladder truck to improve response times throughout the city, and issue up to $9.2 million of general obligation bonds maturing with a maximum of 21 years, and levy annual excess property taxes to repay the bonds, all as provided in Resolution 22-18. Should this proposition be approved or rejected?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goldman. We'll turn to our city clerk, make sure we've not had any input from the public.
That's correct, Mayor. We
Okay.
received no input.
And then this will be an opportunity from anybody here, okay, to speak to it. And seeing none, we will turn to council.
Councilmember Heisen has her hand raised.
Okay, Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Goldman, did we skip over the explanation language for the voter's guide for the last issue, or are we going to tackle that separately?
Oh, well, we could talk about that or not. It was attached as an exhibit to the previous item, and it's also, the voter's guide explanation is attached to this one too, for this particular ballot initiative. We can talk about that. It's up to the council. I'll just go to it now for this one, or do you want me to go back to the last one, or how did you want to?
I was just wondering if we were going to have a discussion about it. So if it looks okay to everybody and we don't have any comments, and that's okay. I just want to make sure we didn't miss it in case someone wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, this is the explanatory statement that'll be in the voter's guide for the excess levy for the bonds.
Mm-hmm. Is there one of the things that I was wondering if we would include and didn't notice was the mention about insurance rates going up if the ratings bureau, lowers our safety rating. I don't know if we decided that was important enough to include or.
Well, we do have our bond counsel available. The recommendation that I've been getting from bond counsel and also our own city attorney, because it's always better to have two city attorneys than one, right? is we should be careful in what we do put in here to make sure that if it does end up passing, it doesn't end up getting thrown out by like a technicality. So if we were to put any language like that in there, we we really want to, couch it with expected or possible or, words like that. And we do have a limit of 200 words, and I got to look at my files to see how close we are to the 200 words. But certainly Stacy Amasaki with Foster Garvey is definitely available to maybe weigh in.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I wasn't sure if that was something that would just kind of end up muddying the waters. And so, it might not even necessarily be a sure thing, like you said, that there might be or it could be, but I think that the language that you have in there currently is just fine. I think it's pretty clear. So thank you.
Sure.
Councillor Stuckey.
And to Councilmember Heisen's point, I mean, that's a good thing for us to keep in mind as we're talking to the community, doing presentations, things like that, to let them know those sort of things. Apparently I'm long-winded, and so, yes, so I will make the motion.
Brian, you can just move to approve the recommended action as presented. You don't have to read the whole.
Are you kidding me?
You could do that.
Unless you want to.
We were just enjoying the.
No, I'm going to do it. Motion to approve City of Oak Harbor Resolution 22-18, providing for a ballot proposition to be submitted to the qualified electors of the city on November 8th, 2022, in conjunction with the state general election to be held on the same date, of a proposition authorizing the city to issue general obligation bonds in the aggregate principal amount of no more than $9,200,000 for the purpose of paying costs of construction and equipping a second fire station, including the acquisition of a new ladder truck, the principal of and interest of such bonds to be payable from annual excess property tax levies, designate the city attorney and finance director to receive notice of ballots from the auditor and providing for related matters.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second, and I'm not going to reread it. The motion reads like the recommended action in the packet. Motion made by Councillor Stuckey, second by Mayor Pro Tem Munns. Seeing no other input or questions, all in favor signify by raising your right hand, please.
Mayor, that is unanimous.
That passes unanimous. You got a vote from the chief even. How about your left
On
hand?
behalf of all the staff and Ray and Sabrina and everybody else who worked on this for the past few years, we all thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to item number 7C, ordinance number 1957, creating a Parks and Rec district with director. And I'll turn to our city administrator, Blaine Oborn.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This item is to create a Park and Rec department with the director, and I appreciate your consideration and appreciate your input from the last council meeting. So I'm going to kind of go over the required ordinance that goes along with it. And just the next slide here. This is just some of the items presented here is the Park and Recreation Department with the director, the resigning of 3 divisions under that Park and Rec director, and then I'll go into the detail there of some of the cleanup legislation that was required or ordinance that was required to with regards to the Public Works Director. So, and then the org chart was already presented, and you can go to the next slide here, kind of the before and after and how it really creates a pretty comparable department there. Then the next slide is talking about the fiscal impact and the allocation. We kind of already discussed that. Moving on to the actual ordinance, it's 7 sections, I believe. So it broke up that we had to deal with. The first section was regarding the city administrator and just adds the Park and Recreation Director as the position that reports to that position, and then removes the marina in that position. The next section, section 2, is regarding the department heads and the at-will status. It just adds that position in there, the Parks and Rec Director as an at-will position comparable to other areas. And then there was a lot of obsolete language in there that doesn't apply, so it made sense to just clean that up at the same time. Moving on to section 3, this is just the harbor master and clarifying where the harbor master reports to. Moving on is the Public Works Director section here. It deletes some obsolete language in this section here. It doesn't need to apply. And then the next section here, it removes parks as one of the divisions listed in this ordinance, and so it removes that assigned duty from the Public Works Director. And then moving on to item 6 here, this is the new section, has 3 parts. The first part just officially pronounces the creation of the department, and then the next part is, second part is designating the director, uses the same language for other department head positions, mentioning that it's at will. Unfortunately, there's rumors out there that I have a designated person in there. I'll just hit it right on, and absolutely no designated person. And even if I did, I don't have the authority to appoint that person, and it has to be confirmed. And like I said at previous discussions, this is going to be like other department head positions where we have a process of heavily involving the council and having 2 to 3 council members involved in the interview process, and then all the council members involved in giving input during the interview process when they come in person of the top 2 to 4 candidates there. So certainly the council's heavily leans toward it, and so whatever candidate the mayor and I bring forward has to have the majority vote of the council for that agreement and that appointment. So council will clearly have an active role. So that kind of addresses that rumor there. That's absolutely not true. Going on to item, the third part of this section here, the new ordinance for the position is the powers and duties. Some of the key areas I liked on this language here is conduct any form of recreation and culture activity, plan, promote, manage, acquire, construct, develop, maintain, and operate parks. I like the community building part. And then coordinate with other identities, including the county, park district, schools, and et cetera, are key areas of a park and rec department. And then finally, the last major part is just the park section, and then clarifies, removes the Public Works Director and puts the Park and Rec Director as doing that. So a lot of changes there. It was kind of fun doing this. I appreciate your support in this, and if council's amenable to it, that you can go ahead and approve the recommended motion, and I'll answer any follow-up questions.
Thank you, Mr. Olborn. At this time, I'd like to turn to our city clerk to see if we've had any input about this from our public.
No, Mayor, no
Okay.
input on this item.
Make sure and let the audience know that they would have a chance to speak about this if they wish at this time. Not seeing any, then we'll go to City Council.
Mayor Pro Tem has her hand raised.
Great. Start off with Mayor Pro Tem Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. This is exciting, and it has some great, as you said, synergy advantages as far as opening up possibly some other grants. What I am still concerned about is that the plan, promote, manage, and acquire construction, development, maintain, and operate parks, which also includes writing grants. Liz Lang is doing a fabulous job as the operation manager of the center. Chris Sublett seems to be doing a fabulous job with the marina. And the parks, we're missing an operational manager. I'm sorry, but Hank Neidham used to do 10 to 20 hours of manual labor, and I can't see with all these other things. I mean, it's a great idea, but you need to guarantee we're going to have an operational manager underneath this director position to handle the park. I'm sorry, 6 employees. I know that Tally's been doing a good job filling in as like an interim, but he's got other responsibilities too. And Hank, or what this position required, is in January, they have a calendar for the whole year. all the leagues, who's going to be using what parks and when, and are there special tournaments, or is there special, and are they going to help with some maintenance, kind of thing. That's the thing. It's just, and if someone is sick, when you only have 6 people, we have 2 seasonal right now, but 2 people are out, that means that director is going to have to be out there helping somehow manually. But yet you still want them to overlook the marina, overlook the center, and is that person going to try to, well, I think I can run this marina in the center better. Well, you've got 2 experts right now that seem to be doing a darn good job. So I am still very worried with our beautiful, valuable parks that we have and the trees, Tree City, that you're not planning, I haven't seen it, I may have missed it, an operational manager for parks. You need that person to be able to look at the schedule and inspect the work that's doing and still take care of the paperwork stuff. So that is my big concern in voting for this, is to know we are going to have enough for parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Other council or questions or? Yes, Councilor Hoffmeyer.
I move that we approve of the recommended action as presented.
Second.
So we do have a motion and a second to approve the action as presented. Motion reads exactly like the recommended action. Any other input or questions? Yes, Councilor Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo the same concerns that Councilmember Munns had. And Mr. Oborn, you know that I have those concerns. I've shared them with you personally. I love the idea. I love the idea of being able to have this position and to create more opportunities within the city and to create that synergy that you spoke of and to kind of take the responsibilities away from our Public Works Director. But I'm concerned with leaving parks in a lurch. I don't want to, we're taking that director from that position and then putting them above the marina and senior services as well. And so it does cause some concern for me that, I know ideally we would be able to have that director level position at parks and then somebody at this parks and rec position. But I just hate to see us leave our parks in a lurch. And that's my only concern.
Thank you, Councilor Marshall. Councilor Stuckey.
So 2 notes. One, I did talk to our senior services director and our harbor master because I wanted to hear what they thought about having basically another level of management above them. And to my surprise, they were both all for it. I guess my question for our city administrator, they currently report to you, correct?
Yes.
How much time, because I assume they seem like great, competent people that could probably manage those departments with very little oversight. How much time in a week do you think on average you spend in regards to the marina and senior services? Does it take up much of your time?
Not enough.
Not enough. Okay.
I think we have it depends on the initiatives. I mean, we have to get involved in the roof issue. We have the capital project with the dredging and with the property purchase. And so certainly the operation, they're pretty good about running the operation. It's just the sundry items that need to do. And that's what a director is going to do. Specifically, this ordinance creates the new position. It doesn't talk about how it's funded or how it's done. We can approve it if council wants to give me direction to go ahead and hire back the parks manager. Certainly, I'm okay. I certainly approve that. I know we struggle with financing, so I'm trying to do this with an upgraded position rather than spending $160,000 or so with a new position, upgrading an existing position, and it doesn't fit exactly right. But we've done that with other positions. We took a mayor's assistant position and upgraded it to a PIO and now a communications IT manager and kind of made it work. I think it'll work in doing that, but I certainly can understand the concerns with you on it. But if I had my way, I would leave the funding wasn't an issue and finding the financing for it the issue. I'd leave the manager position in there and create this above. And certainly we could do that. I'm just telling you the structure way we're funding it is by upgrading the position, but the ordinance itself just creates the a park and rec director position, which we don't have. It really doesn't address the funding. So if you wanted to push that and look for, and had goals on it when we do the budget process and fill that position and have a Parks and Rec director with a manager over parks underneath them, and certainly we could go in that route. Regarding doing the day-to-day operations stuff, I mean, our union doesn't really like that too much. When managers aren't supposed to do the day-to-day operations on that issue, so there is some concern. So we moved away from that issue and that kind of work status. So I won't speak to it in the past, but we need to be concerned, and we did have issues with volunteers and stuff, and so we need to get that balance with our union people and making them happy, and having the managers manage and the union people do the union work.
Thank you.
Councillor Hoffmeyer.
It seems a majority of council is very supportive of this. It also seems like a majority of council has the same concern with ensuring that the Parks Department is properly staffed. I would assume there's probably some room for reorganization as well, you know, when this happens. And I really like candidates that do their homework. So to the future people that haven't yet applied, this is probably along the lines of my interview question. How are you going to handle this? Because I'm sure it's a concern for staff as well. And may the best person win.
Mayor, both council members Heisen and Munns have their hands raised.
We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. I thank you, Mr. Oborn, for that suggestion of pushing for the next budget cycle for an operational manager. I just feel like if we had trouble hiring a operational manager, we've gone through two, and now you're elevating this and you're adding more to the plate. I just think the park will take it in the shorts. The other two, not worried about, but and with adding another park. So yes, I would love it if we could push Mr. Goldman in your ear that we would somehow like to still keep a operational manager for the parks. I just think it can't be done. I think this person would quit from all the stress of all the things we're trying to ask for them. So thank you, Mr. Oborn, for that suggestion. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Sorry, Councillor Heisen, I probably should have called on you first. Are you with us still?
I'm here. Yes. Yeah. I was going to respectfully remind you that no council member may speak twice until everyone's had a chance.
Thank you. Sorry.
But I didn't want to interrupt. I appreciate Administrator Oborn's pointing out the concern with expecting a director level position to be doing the union level work and the manual labor. That's definitely not something we want to encourage. It may happen from time to time, but that's not an expectation that we should have. That said, I have every confidence that we will be able to find someone that knows how to write a grant and also pitch in for the manual labor. That's not something I'm concerned about at all. As far as staffing levels, that I do have some concerns about. And, you know, we've done this every single budget cycle. We have eliminated, we've always funded at least one less park position than was requested. So I don't want to throw any, potential future positions, like the economic development coordinator under the bus. But if having our parks staff, fully funded is an issue, that's a council problem. That's a budget issue that we are just going to have to dig deep and figure out how to make that happen if it turns out that we need to make that happen. But I fully support this move, and I think that once we get somebody in there and get feedback about, you know, if we're restructuring everything, we don't have a real firm idea yet of how the day-to-day of that is going to look. But I'm hoping that this next budget cycle we can dig deep and get our parks fully staffed, because they do require, I think, to be prioritized higher than we have been. And I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heisen. So I think we have a motion and a second. And anybody else have any input at this point? Seeing none, then I'll call for those in favor of approving the recommended action as proposed. Please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That is unanimous, Mayor.
Okay, that passes unanimous. So thank you, and again, a good conversation there. I see we have 8 minutes left, and our council rules say that these meetings will get over at 9 o'clock. Our staff, especially those that came at 8 o'clock this morning, I thank you and I apologize in advance, but I think we're going to need a little more time to finish the last 2 items on our agenda. So I would entertain a motion to suspend our rules and go to, what, 9:30? Can we think we can get the last 2 items done in a half an hour?
Yeah.
Okay, entertain a motion to that effect. Mr. Hoffmeyer?
I move that we suspend council rules and extend our meeting to 9:30.
So we have motion second to extend the council rules and go and this evening go until 9:30. Motion by Councillor Hoffmeyer, second by Councillor Evans. All in favor signify by raising your hand. And with that, it looks like we're close to unanimous.
Yes, we are unanimous, Mayor.
Okay.
Councilmember Heisen's hand is raised. It's just not checked on the screen.
Okay. So now we will go to item number 8A, and that is our interlocal agreement with Island County, Washington for law enforcement co-responder behavioral health program. And for that this evening, we have our Chief of Police, Mr. Dresker. Chief Dresker?
Hi, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, Mayor and council members, thank you. I'm going to be real short. I'm just going to read from the screen. After the council meeting tonight, I think just keeping it simple is probably going to be best. So, background summary information. This agreement establishes mutual aid and cooperation in allowing both the city and the county to join together to have a mental health professional co-respond with the city's police force to provide an alternative police response for those people in need of behavioral health services with the city of Oak Harbor. The co-responding mental health professional will provide assistance with the police response to people with mental health, substance use, behavioral, housing, veteran, and financial needs. The goal is to reduce repeated contacts by law enforcement, reduce incarceration rates, and reduce emergency service usage. Oak Harbor Police Department will provide an office space, some equipment, and collaboration with Oak Harbor Police Department. The only thing I will add is we've actually had this in effect for about a month. We have Christina in our office. She's working in there. We've provided some equipment. Kudos to Island County. There's another person just like that working with the Island County Sheriff's Office. And it's a fledgling project, but we are hoping it's going to provide some great things. We know that it's only as good as what people who are in need will let or seek the help or want the help. So I'm open for any questions before I do the recommended action, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be fine. We'll just, I'll turn to city clerk, make sure we've got no input from the public about this item.
No,
Okay?
Mayor, no input.
Make sure that those who are in attendance here tonight know that they could talk. Okay, not seeing any. Turn to council then. Yes, Councilor Wiesner.
Well, I only have 3 things to say about this. Thank you, Island County. Right, this is a great thing, and we appreciate Island County stepping up. And I think this is probably going to be the easiest thing for us to approve this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion. I recommend to authorize the mayor to sign interlocal agreement with Island County, Washington for the law enforcement co-responder behavioral health program. Second.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and 2 seconds. Motion is to approve the recommended action as presented. Motion by Councilor Weiser, and that second goes to Councilor Evans. So with that, all in favor signify by raising your right hand, please. Okay, that passes
That is unanimous, Mayor.
unanimously. Okay, we'll go to our last item. Holy smokes, we get this done probably not in 4 minutes. No, no pressure, no pressure. No, I'm kidding. We do have a little additional time. Yeah, Mr. Goldman, you certainly do not have to go until 9:30. But our last item is number 10A, Transportation Benefit District Annual Report. And for this, we have our Finance Director, Mr. David Goldman.
You know what? I decided I'm not going to go at all. We're going to have Chaz Webster make the presentation.
Great. Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Mayor. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. So I'm hoping everybody can see that.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to try to keep it also pretty short for you guys as much as possible. Chaz Webster, Finance and Performance Analyst, and I'll be presenting the 2021 Transportation Benefit District Annual Report. The Transportation Benefit District was created in May of 2018 by Ordinance 1835 and is overseen by City Council in accordance with Ordinance 1865. In November of 2019, the TBD ballot measure was approved by the voters, allowing for the 0.2% sales tax increase to fund local road improvements and to preserve and maintain the city's transportation infrastructure. The 0.2% local sales tax increase was effective as of April 1st, 2020, and will remain in place for 10 years. The estimated annual revenue is expected to be about $987,000. TBD funds provide improvements to approximately 148 lane miles of streets in city limits, of which 103 lane miles are local streets. The council oversees the TBD with business conducted during regular city council meetings. The 2021 financial summary is as follows. The beginning balance was about $477,000. Total revenues collected was about $1.2 million. Expenditures were about $332,000, and the ending balance nearly $1.3 million. This map depicts the overlay projects completed in 2021. No chip seal projects were completed. The 2021 TBD overlay projects included asphalt resurfacing improvements to approximately 1.5 miles. Locations were Southwest McCrowan, Southwest Castilian Drive, Southwest Inglewood Lane, Southwest 12th Court, Southwest Ingleside Court, Southwest 13th Ave, and Southwest 14th Court. The 2022 TBD projects are highlighted in blue and green. Estimated 2022 project costs are $221,000 for chip seal and $1.1 to $1.3 million for overlay work. For a complete list of projects, please visit www.oakharbor.org/TBD. That does include the report for tonight. Alex wasn't able to join us tonight, so if there are any questions that he would answer for you, I'll write those questions down and have him follow up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chaz. This is an information-only item, so it doesn't take any input other than questions or suggestions that you may have. Questions for Alex when he gets back? Seeing none, it doesn't look like they're anxious to ask any questions of Alex. I know we've got a lot of work planned for this year in process already, so that's pretty exciting. Yes, Councilor Wiesner.
Yeah, just a comment, and I think we had brought it up once before. It'd be nice to create like a A-frame sign or something, so when we're doing these projects, it can go up at the project and let people know that this is the TBD at work, so they know where those funds are coming from and that this is, part of a bigger process. And I love the 2022 map. If we could get that plastered out there everywhere on Facebook, Instagram, in front of our, web page. I don't think people should have to dig for this. This is kind of a big deal. This is the infrastructure that a community is required to provide. And so I think this should be like right there on the front page, and we should be putting this map out everywhere and putting those signs out every place we're doing the work. Thanks.
Councilmember Wiesner, this is Sabrina Combs. I am currently working with Alex Warner on doing some more outreach on this. We've already got the signs designed that include the specific logo that we've created for this program that talk about work in progress, your tax dollars at work. That was a request also by the mayor, so we have those in progress. And we're also working on some more communications around that as these projects get started.
Very good. Yes, Councilor Stuckey.
I think I say it every time, but I'm going to say it again. In that communication, if we can just please make a comment about West Whidbey, because we all know when these roads get paved, people are going to say, why wasn't West Whidbey paved? So if we can just get the communication of why West Whidbey is going to be a little bit longer, that'd be greatly appreciated. Well, okay.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions. Oh, Councilor Hoffmeyer? Well, I am, actually, but I want to say thank you again to staff. I know we're going to be meeting in the morning to discuss what happened here this evening, like we do after every council meeting, but I know some of you were here at 8 o'clock and even before today, and here it is 9, and you're still here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have a lot of hardworking people. We appreciate you. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Would just like to concur with you, Mayor. Thank you to you, and thank you to all the staff, and I move that we adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
The motion second. All in favor? I'm thinking we're out the door. Okay. Yeah, that passes unanimously. Thank you, City Council.